When you have a hearing loss, it's like you are listening in black and white. Some of the cues are not available. That can be the spatial cues. That can also be some of the more other face-based cues like pitch. So this is intonation. This is the cues that enable you to decide that this is this person's voice compared to somebody else's voice. And it's an interaction between the spatial cues and the other face-based cues, actually all of the cues. So when we look at spatial audio, we look at spatial audio together with the rest. Hello and welcome to Ericsson Research Center. My name is Niels Pontoppidan. I'm a principal scientist at this place. I have been working here for 18 years trying to understand hearing loss and its consequences for people with hearing loss. Also trying to understand what it means to not be able to have all the cues available when you are listening. Our research is comprised of first trying to understand the problem. So we do a lot of listening tests. It could be understanding spatial hearing from a spatial unmasking perspective. So you start with having three sound sources right in front of you, and you measure the ability to hear one of the targets and understand what this person is saying. And then you move the two maskers out to the side, and then you measure how good are you at then understanding the single sound source when it's a bit more in isolation. We know that people with hearing loss have various abilities in this test. Some are almost as good as people with normal hearing to utilize that the noises go out to the side. And then there are some for which this really doesn't mean a difference. They cannot use the extra cues that they get from the fact that the sounds go out to the sides. So we are trying to understand what is the mechanism that sort of prevents them of using these cues. We're trying to measure for individuals, can we predict who are going to have this deficit or not? And we're also trying to come up with new algorithms that can enhance this. In many instances, we are only partially getting back to normal hearing. It's like we can perhaps restore 25%, 50% of the ability of normal hearing. So we are not there where we can say that hearing aids are giving you totally normal hearing. When we look at spatial hearing, we have to we start like looking at the sound sources, and then we have to realize that we have 2 ears. That is one of the essential parts of spatial hearing, and also understanding the interaction between spatial hearing and hearing loss. So when we look at audio that comes to you, the audio that comes from over here, it reaches my ear here on the right ear before it reaches my left ear. So there's a time difference between those 2 ears. But also my head is also absorbing some of the acoustic waves, so there is also a level difference between the 2 ears. So that some of the sound is absorbed. In technical terms, we talk about the interaural time difference, and we also talk about the intraoral level difference. And a lot of research also shows that there's also just that the levels, like when the sound reaches this ear before it reaches this ear, there will also be this intraoral envelope difference, which is a combination of ITD and ILD. So these are the cues that you receive at your ear. So when we talk about spatial hearing, I was reminded of the introduction in this book, Auditory Scene Analysis from 1990 by the late Albert Bregman. And there's a really, really nice analogy, and it really also captures how remarkable the spatial hearing ability is. So let me just recite from that. The game is this. Your friend digs 2 narrow channels up from the side of the lake. Each is a few feet long and a few inches wide, and they are spaced a few feet apart. Halfway up each one, your friend stretches a handkerchief and fastens this to the sides of the channel. As the waves reach the side of the lake, they travel up the channels and cause the 2 handkerchiefs to go in motion. You are allowed to look only at the handkerchiefs and from their motions to answer a series of questions. How many boats are there on the lake, and where are they? Which are the most powerful one? Which one is closer? Is the wind blowing? Has any large object been dropped suddenly into the lake? I think this really captures the remarkable ability of our hearing capability. This is not listening. This is really hearing. This is comprehending. This is understanding the world. It gives this really, really nice picture that even, you can say here, even if you close your eyes, you are able to navigate the scene. We also know that there are people that are blind that are using auditory cues beyond imagination to navigate these spaces. But what we have is a remarkable radar-like technology that when you look at it, it has more or less no input at all. It just has the two channels, and from that it can do remarkable things. I think this captures the essence of what spatial hearing is for people with normal hearing, and it essentially also captures some of the challenges that people with hearing loss face, because they are not able to answer all of these questions to the same extent as people with normal hearing. And if they are, they have to struggle more. What we know is that people with hearing loss, their lack of ability to utilize all of the cues in a conversation, that basically means that the signal that the brain receives at later stages, it is more distorted compared to normal hearing. So it's like your brain has to work harder at all times, even in the situations where we as normal hearing listeners feel that this is not complicated. I do not have to invest so much effort in understanding what's being said. With a hearing loss, you don't really have as good audio cues. They are not as salient, and therefore you have to make more effort. I've known this almost since I was a child. I grew up with a dad who's deaf on one ear, and I have seen what this does to him, and how that plays out when you are in even just small family gatherings, because when you have to struggle to understand what's being said, especially in situations with more people talking at the same time, you get tired so much faster. So you withdraw because you don't have the cognitive capability to withstand or survive or engage as much. So I have seen this from as long as I remember, that hearing loss, spatial hearing loss, is really a huge factor of being able to communicate freely. We take this, as normal hearing listeners, we take this for granted. We take for granted that we can utilize these cues, that we can hear the bus over here, we can hear that somebody says my name over here, and I can still be in a conversation with this person out there. When you have a hearing loss, then you don't really have that ability to just keep track of what's happening. You're not, and because you don't have that, you don't have the ability to just naturally switch attention. That is basically what it's all about. When we are designing our studies, when we are designing our projects, the thing that we are working at is first understanding the problem and what is the origin of the problem. And then we are trying to hypothesize if a certain signal processing can enhance this. So what we have seen so far is that when we have people talking from various directions and have background noises, a hearing aid is capable of attenuating some of the background noises and some of the noises to the side, and that gives you a better ability to zoom in and understand what's being said in front of you. And what we're really trying to do with our research, what we want our devices, our hearing aids to be able to do in the future, is to enhance the auditory scene, make the auditory scene a bit more clear. A hearing aid today, and for most people, I wouldn't talk about just one hearing aid, I would talk about two hearing aids, because most people with hearing loss, they face hearing problems on both ears. So when we look at hearing technology today, we can talk about having hearing aids at both ears. But if we focus on just what comprises one hearing aid, it is essentially a bit like the first hearing aids that came out 120 years ago. We have microphones that pick up the sound. Then we have an amplification unit and also a filtering unit. And we also have a loudspeaker. And either you put the microphone just at the entrance of the ear canal, and then you have the loudspeaker pushed deeply inside the ear canal. That's in the ear or in the canal devices. Or often you can also have a device where you have the loudspeaker inside the ear canal, and then it's connected to the hearing aid that you have behind your ear, and then you have some microphones on top of, predominantly on top of the hearing aid, because with that you can have a more open fitting, so that some of the natural sound can come through, and also it feels better to wear it. And then because you have then two microphones, you can also do some processing where you are utilizing that the hearing aid can sense the direction of arrival of the different sound sources. But essentially, what you have, and you may experience this if you go to any event with loudspeakers and amplification and microphones, imagine that they get so close together as they are in a hearing aid. So a lot of the design and a lot of the development around hearing aids over the years has gone into being able to amplify some sound here that is picked up by a microphone here, and that is really, really close without making the hearing aid howl. When we talk about the fact that people have binaural hearing loss, and also that we have hearing aids, and you have one aid on one ear and the other aid on the other ear. Like when I started 20 years ago, we usually talked about bilateral hearing aid fitting, because that meant that you had one hearing aid on the right ear, and it was really an independent unit. And you had another hearing aid on the left ear, and that was also an independent unit. There was no communication between them. They would both know that they were either a left or right ear device, but nothing happened between them. They couldn't exchange information. And with more wireless communication, what hearing aids are able to do today is first just the comfort things, that when you change program on one hearing aid, it also changes the program on the other side. When you increase the volume on one side, it also increases the volume on the other side, so that it maintains the intraoral level difference without you having to remember, okay, I put this one 2 up, then I also have to put this one 2 up. And then it also can also exchange information about where the sound sources are and at which levels and so on. And what we see is that nowadays there are also some hearing aids that are actually capable of transmitting the sound source from one side to the other. That can be quite helpful if you have a single-sided deafness, because then you don't have, if this one, like I say, if this one is deaf, then the sound that is picked up here can be transferred over here, and you can still hear that something is happening there. So it's not like you are ignoring and being rude towards all the people out on that side. And, I've seen that with my dad. So that's what's happening. What we are really looking into in the future is that there's a more, let's say, a more enhanced or a more detailed sharing of information between the two ears, so that the hearing aids can actually work together in singling out sound sources from different directions, so that we have a better spatial processing that utilizes that you can actually have 4 microphones, 2 on each side, and that they can work together. Also with wireless technology, we can also put a auxiliary device in front of people. You can have people wear a mic, the people that you are talking to, and then you can get it sort of like really clean. But we also see now that there are table microphones that you can put out in front of you, and with those table microphones, you can actually obtain a better understanding of what is being said around you, because they can scan, and they have more processing power than the hearing aids. So they can scan the various directions and just let those directions where you have sound, speech come through, and then those where it's sound and noise, it can attenuate that ones. So what we will see in the future is this combination of more binaural processing, where the hearing aids are exchanging information, but also the use of auxiliary devices, where you combine microphones to sort out where the sound sources are. But what we will also see is that with the new wave of AI. I'm so old, so I remember the former wave. I also remember that we couldn't talk about AI because it was not cool. But now we have AI, and deep learning also provides capabilities of actually segregating sound sources. So essentially, when we look at this, the current technology landscape, not necessarily what can be in a hearing aid today, but the current technology landscape is that we can make spatial processing where we utilize different microphones, and we can get some information about the sound scene from that. That's just like we have 2 ears. But with the deep learning, we are also able to learn more from these sound signals. We are able to come up with some algorithms that are really, really clever. We have taught algorithms how to separate 2 voices from each other. So it doesn't need to have any spatial information. It just have learned that this voice sounds like this voice sounds like this. And once you have that, you can simply enhance the spatial audio by moving the 2 sound sources more off to the side. This is one way of enhancing the segregation. We have shown that if you apply deep neural networks to 2 people speaking at the same time, and then present those segregated signals, one in left, one in right ear, then we enhance people's ability to switch attention. So what we actually see in the technology landscape right now is that both we can utilize the interaural time difference, the interaural level difference, but we can also utilize all of the other cues that are inside of auditory objects. And the future signal processing in hearing aids will, at least that's what I believe, it will be a combination of these things, that we're utilizing both the spatial cues of the sounds, but we're also utilizing the monaural cues of the sound, so that the hearing aid is first understanding, it's doing the scene analysis, and then once it has done the scene analysis, it enhances the scene so that you get this more enhanced view of, or you can have this more enhanced perception of the sound environment, where you know that things are at different places, even though that your hearing loss may prevent you from that. The hearing aid is trying to restore that. If we go a little bit into evolutionary biology, or just history, we have seen that for thousands of years, people lived until their 40s. That was the mean, or the average expected lifespan. And so that is basically also what our hearing has evolved into accommodating. Now, as we grow much older than 40 years, the hearing capability gets into extended lifetime. So as we grow older, our hearing deteriorates. I'm approaching 50. I know from some of my research that that I already have traces of this, where my ability to utilize face cues, the spatial face cues, and they're probably not as good as when I was 25. So what we are seeing is that the abilities that we have with hearing aids today, that are mainly about trying to restore audibility, reduce the unwanted background noises. We also need to look a bit more into the spatial hearing to understand what next generation of hearing aids should be. I am researching the hearing aids that I will probably wear myself in 10 years from now. That's I'm trying to help everybody else, but it's also about helping myself live an active life where I'm able to take part in conversations. I don't know yet. I cannot feel it yet, but it comes. I can say it comes with experience.